Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining. We are just going to give it a couple more minutes before we get started. Um, but thanks again for hopping on, and we'll be with you shortly. All right, looks like people are still joining, but it's 11:03, so we'll go ahead and get this started just to be respectful of everybody's time. But hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. This webinar today, we're going to showcase why Enact is the best end-to-end platform for solar and storage. I'm Eliza. I will be your moderator today, and we're so thrilled to have you join us. Today, we have Danny Hernandez and Mark Quint here. They are going to guide you through a demonstration and answer all of your questions. So strongly encourage you to utilize the Q&A box down below to ask any questions that you may have. But we'll just go ahead and jump into the agenda. So let's get started. So we're going to start off with Danny. He's going to give a little introduction on why Enact and what our solar design software is. And then he'll jump into doing a software demo along with our API integration. And then we will pass it over to Mark for our asset management demo. And then we'll save some time at the end for the questions. But again, feel free to ask questions throughout the demo, and we are here to assist. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Danny.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I'd love to first introduce just a really quick overview on introducing Enact. Today, Enact platform and company has actually accumulated thousands of users across 35 countries. We do over 1.5 billion projects and proposed projects per year. We do cater to both residential and commercial clients, and we have a beautiful end-to-end platform. And by that, we mean not only can we design and do proposals, but we're also really big on tracking outcomes. And that outcome piece will be what we will be highlighting, uh, you know, today the most. But first, I'll be showing a demonstration of the software. And here's just a quick preview into the slides of our, rapid solar design, how you can price and finance easily within our pricing page, and finally, the proposal aspect of exporting the proposals. Lastly, I'll also be covering another highlight for the day would be the API Connect feature. So, as a lot of you may know, API integrations are very powerful automations that can help, not only save time by automatically transferring data to your CRM or ERP or even accounting systems, but they also increase system health and accuracy. And in the world of solar, that can be very key and crucial to any company's growth, as well as, helping companies speed up their timeline to PTO. So here are just a few Zoho, Blue Banyan, a few that we can connect with, but we can connect with pretty much anything with an open API. Thanks, Eliza. I will pivot quickly and show a really speedy demo of our design platform. So I've just logged in and I can go into this project, and here we'll see I have the ability to automatically get the utility within this jurisdiction, the utility rate, as well as the territory. These can be updated live depending on the bills, as well as the ability to update the kilowatt hour monthly according to their bills as well. I do have the option though to change my input and choose a interval data file for consumption, as well as selecting the correct load profile to properly model, how this customer uses their energy from day to day. Once we've done that successfully, we can go into the design and actually model out, everything accurately in 3D about height, pitch, shading right here in our platform. So if I move us into 3D, you can see how I've got setbacks, panels on the roof. I can see how obstructions are laid out, and even some being, higher up into the sky to really nail down shading and, true production values. So as you can see, this tree in the back does have shading on the back side of the panels that will affect our production. Um, but we are still sitting at a 98% offset as seen at the top right. Um, so once I'm ready to move forward with this design, I can pull a shade report that I can download. I can export this project into CAD by using our DXF download, or even simply simulating an overview simulation report of the project. To see more robust charts and graphs on this project, I can click simulate and see grid independence percentages, generation numbers and percentages, bill offset of 84%. So although we're offsetting their energy consumption by 98%, since we are in a NEM3 uh, market on this design, my bill offset's going down to an 84%. Even with having included a battery, you can see here I do have a point guard stacked battery at 16 kilowatt hours. Um, and what's really nifty and handy is the top right. If you click on this little arrow, you can see exactly what I have designed today on this project. So 400-watt panels, 53 in quantity, three stacked Fortress power inverters, inverters, and then 2 units of totaling 16 kilowatt hours in storage capacity. Once I know I have the right design for my customer based on, you know, my outputs and what they're looking for, I can move into my pricing page where you can already have saved profiles for residential or commercial deals. This is, I use this as a bill of materials, which I can download here, but really everything in terms of your price and even including your labor and fees would be included in the total price per watt. So everything that's being calculated here, from permit packages to panels to batteries and storage and inverters and labor costs, are all being aggregated into my total PPW. And then from there, I can select any incentives and credits that might pertain to the market and the deal, as well as financing or lease or PPA or cash. Um, and then you can publish all kinds of proposals. We have a lot of different variations. We're very big on proposal customization. The one that I've exported for this particular design is here. So you can see we have a 21.2 kilowatt capacity, 12,477 kilowatt hour generation, 98% energy offset, and avoiding about $5,000 in the very first year of going solar. There's a lot of other charts here that can provoke your client to go solar with you, such as what if you did nothing and didn't go solar today? That's going to cost you a pretty penny. As well as seeing what that offset is in a clearer chart view per month, how much you're saving every single month. So there's a lot in here. It really depends on how you want your brand look and feel to be presented to your customer, which we can definitely support you in. So I'll stop sharing that. I think I had some questions come up along the way, which we'll definitely address towards the end of the session. The last thing to display and highlight today is, as we're doing designs, as we're entering data, and pulling, wanting to close deals and make contracts with our clients. How are we handling that data? Well, as mentioned before, we can connect to uh, any open API, what's usually determined to as a REST API platform. So we have a REST API, so it's open and we can not only create leads in the CRM. In this example, we're using Zoho. So we've created the lead in Zoho. Once you click that button, it's going to send all that lead data straight into Enact without you needing to manually enter any information. So it's going to send me right into my design without needing to enter any lead info. Once I've knocked out my design, I can transfer that data back to the CRM. And that's great because I can pull that straight into my contract tool, into my ERP system, my accounting systems, so I can accurately pull that data and move my client's deal along much faster and a lot more accurately. Um, that is the highlight there. It's just showing me now how if I also were to make edits, you can also sync those edits. And in this case, we're removing two panels. So any edits that come back when talking to the client, you can easily, make those adjustments and then sync that updated data back to any of your internal systems that can be connected. Yeah, thank you guys so much. That's my piece there. And from here, I'll hand it over to Mark.
Great. Thanks, Danny. So Danny talked a little bit about the design and sale of solar to a customer, but what happens next? Unlike other solar proposal and design platforms, Enact also offers asset management, which we feel like is a really critical, important piece of the puzzle that is selling solar, and most importantly, the O&M space, making sure it keeps working, making sure customers are happy, and hopefully making sure they keep sending referrals to installers. So I want to spend a few minutes on some slides, but I want to jump into the actual software and show you guys a little bit more about our platform. So when we talk about asset management, we think about four main pillars in it. The first is really aimed at installers, and that's a fleet view of all of the systems and their current statuses. The second is our Enact Home app, which is a mobile and a web application for end clients or customers of installers. The third is monthly performance reports, which give an overview for both installers and customers about how well the system is performing. And the fourth are the system alert emails. Unfortunately, we know in the business things do go wrong. And the goal is to make sure that we, installers, customers, are alerted as soon as that happens so we can make sure that we resolve them. So diving a little bit more into each one, we know as installers' fleets grow, you have an increasing number of sites and often inverter types, and it's hard to keep track of everything. So we keep hearing over and over from installers that it's difficult trying to manage hopping between multiple OEM portals to keep track of things or troubleshooting. Let's say you sell Enphase and SolarEdge. It's difficult even just to juggle two of those, but as time goes on and you start selling new brands or stop selling old brands, you're adding more and more of these inverter portal sites that you have to jump around and keep track of. So this doesn't really scale well, which is what we've heard as installers grow. We know these portals are great for deep dives and in-depth troubleshooting if something goes wrong, but that's really the main design of them. And a lot of installers we've heard are trying to use them as the primary tool for system fleet management, which is not really what they were designed for. So there's some certain inherent pain points around that. So we took all of those learnings and created a simple fleet view here, which you can see here on the left. We'll of course jump into the software in a second. And this is a great one-stop shop to see all of the customer sites, be able to search for them, see a map view of them, and just quickly get a good idea of sort of, you wake up in the morning, you open your laptop, are there any new problems since yesterday in terms of sites that may have gone offline or may have some issue that need your attention? Obviously, it's great to have an eye on this before customers ask you, or if a customer does happen to notice at first, it's very easy to pull up this view and sort of get a good understanding of what's going on. The second is the real-time monitoring. So this is part of the Enact Home app, which we'll also see in a second. This is a web and an iOS and Android application that's available in the App Store that your customers can use. And at first glance, this looks here pretty much like what you'd see in the OEM app from Enphase or SolarEdge. But we know this is often the first thing a customer or an installer may want to check out with a site. So we include this as well in terms of the understanding what's really going on here at a glance. Then at the right, you can see where we start to get into some of the things that these OEM portals don't offer, which is better contextualizing the outcomes of the system. So we talk about monitoring, but it's really monitoring not only what's going on, but outcomes and trying to understand the benefits of what going solar actually means to the end customer. And we've heard a lot about how customers think about this as an investment. They often pay a lot of money up front or they might finance, but the idea is they're hedging some of these energy price increases, and over time, that system gets paid off as they realize reduction in their utility bill every month. So we like to talk a lot about savings as time goes on, lifetime savings, and show them that they're actually paying off their system as time goes on, and every month that utility bill is less than it otherwise would have been if they didn't have solar. So in the software, we'll see all sorts of other charts and graphs around how this number is calculated. But at a high level, these are some of the important things at the top. We'll jump into the savings and performance charts in the software demo, but we like to break this down by month. And the cool thing about Enact is because that proposal quote was put together in the software Danny just showed us, we know how we've modeled your system, how we think it should perform. So in this chart, this lighter green bars are estimated savings. So these are all put together in that proposal phase where we put together this modeling, this very advanced modeling based on your design for the next 25 years of how we think your system is going to perform. Now the system is live and we're actually integrated with all of these different inverter types, and we can pull in that actual data. So we'll see some of the more basic generation graphs, but we can take that actual generation and actual consumption and actual export and compare that to what your system or what your utility bill would have been if you didn't have solar. So we have the estimated savings that showed up in that original proposal, and then we can track how that system is actually doing in terms of those outcomes versus what was estimated. So in some cases, some months or some trends may be better in actuality than estimated. And in some cases, like this example, the actual savings were a little bit less. So this could be due to a number of reasons. And in the software, we'll see some ways to diagnose that. The next one is the reporting and alerts. On the left, you can see an example of one of the emails we send out to installers and their customers. This is for people who like to more passively consume information versus someone who may want to log into the app and see this. This is just a nice sort of high-level summary that'll appear in an inbox every month. And again, sort of contextualize how well the system is doing in terms of ROI and generation and ultimately savings. In terms of alerts, there will also be email reports, email alerts if the site goes offline. By offline, that means we either know there's a problem with the system or we've stopped receiving communications from the inverter. So maybe it's just a connectivity problem. But either way, there needs to be some steps taken to resolve. We offer the user right in the app some simple troubleshooting steps. If maybe they change their Wi-Fi password or just need to reconnect something to the internet, we try to let them address it instead of moneying up the customer service supports for the installer. We try to save only the most serious problems for the installer. We also have our own knowledge base of some of these troubleshooting things someone can try. Of course, if installers have their own wikis or knowledge bases, we are very customizable and that we can send them to one of your pages as well. I don't want to talk too much about this right now, but we do support renewable energy certificates. We inform the user a little bit about this if they are in a REC state. For a global audience, this is more of a US thing right now and is only available in certain states, but it is something we are making visible to our customers. And then referrals. We know referrals are a really important part of this business. This is often how installers find new customers. This is why it's really important to keep customers happy. We want to make it as simple as possible for happy customers to share with their family or friends, or strangers who ask them about solar when they see it on their roofs. So this is built right into both the desktop and the mobile app, and it's very easy to refer someone. I mentioned this before, but you can attach your own knowledge base or ticketing or CRM system here. So here you can see an example of a company that uses Zoho's CRM. And this can be a knowledge base that's launched by a little icon in the lower right side of the screen, which we'll see again in the software. You can write your own articles, and you can even attach chat or other ways to contact customer service right from the app if customers have problems. Then my last slide is our inverter connectors. As I mentioned, we work with a variety of installers all over the world. We know there's a huge number of different inverters in the business. And to get all of this information that lets us do these monitorings and lets us track user outcomes, we connect to an inverter's open API. And that's basically just a piece of software, a piece of technology that lets us pull the data from each one of these customer sites once a day, and the installer give us permission to do that. So we're integrated with a whole bunch of them already. Obviously, the big ones in the US are SolarEdge and Enphase, but we know around the world there is a much a larger pool, and there's quite a different variety, including a lot of new ones. The good news is that both everyone has an open API, and that we're also very good at connecting to these various APIs. So, we're currently in the middle of some new integrations with a variety of different installation partners. If you see this and are interested and you're like, hey, the inverter I use isn't on the list, it's not a big deal. We can very quickly integrate with new inverter types, and we're very good at this sort of thing. All right, let me jump into the software. So this is a demo account, so obviously no real customer information of the fleet view. So some highlights here, as you saw in the screenshot, this is this good one-stop shop to quickly get an understanding of all of the different sites in your fleet. You can search by ID or name. You can see some high-level information here, like address, what type of system is it? Is it solar? Does it have a battery? You can see when it was originally turned on. Then you can see a little bit of statistics around the solar capacity, and then some of the aggregates in terms of energy generated and the normalized daily solar yield. And then you can quickly see if we're reporting any problems or not. Luckily here, everything is online. We're not having any system failures or communication issues, so all of these are showing up green. And of course, we only have a few in our demo account, but this can support as many sites as you want to bring us here. We also have a map view, which is a little less exciting in our demo view here because there's only a few sites all in the same area. But we know installers like to also think about where their sites are in a specific area, if they're thinking about rolling trucks, or just want another way to look at all of this data, because it's good to have different ways to visualize these fleets, especially as they're larger and in different geographic areas. So this is the fleet view, which is, of course, is the installer tool. Let me jump back and go into an actual site. So I'm going to pull up a site of a customer that has solar and battery. So this is a view an installer would, of course, be able to get to, but this is what the actual customer would see when they log into their Enact home app. And they can, of course, reach it like we are right now on the web, or they can download the iOS or Android app from the App Store, and they will see essentially the same thing here. To quickly run through some of these elements, similar to what you would see in an inverter app, we get a real-time view of what's going on with the actual system here. We break down the solar generation, what's going on with the battery, including its state of charge, how much power is being pulled from the grid, and then what the home is experiencing at any given time, which often is a combination or pulling directly from one of the elements here. We've talked a little bit about payoff and ROI and lifetime savings in aggregate up here. And then we can get into some of the savings, which we looked at as well. I'll go back to 24 since that's a full year of data at this point. We break this down month by month. Again, the cool comparison here is comparing the actual savings that the customer actually experienced versus what we estimated in the original proposal, since we have all of those designs. And what goes into savings is, of course, the performance of the system. So we break down solar generation here. Again, comparing the estimates in orange from the proposal to the bars on the left. In aggregate, these are what the customer actually experienced in terms of actual system generation. And we can actually break down that actual system generation by how much was self-consumed by the home versus how much they can export. So we do this at a monthly level here. The customer can look back since the system was turned on. We have some high-level statistics up at the top. But this we find is a really good way to paint trends and help explain some of those inherently difficult concepts that, of course, we know well. But by the way, in the summer, the days are longer, the temperatures are a little warmer, generation is going to be a little bit higher versus the winter months where that's not the case. And we can easily see trends here in self-consumption or exports, which makes troubleshooting or explaining certain things to the customer if they've maybe changed some of their behavior a little bit easier. Consumption is obviously the other element that goes into savings. We show the consumption every month, and we break that down into how much was of a monthly consumption was solar energy versus how much was pulled from the grid. And again, here, obviously, this is good in aggregate. In aggregate, if the customer gets a pool or buys an electric vehicle and suddenly, this spikes and continues going up, it's very easy to explain that to the customer. And we found they tend to understand that when they're shown these data, even if originally they may say like, hey, whoa, my utility bill spiked and I don't know what's happened. It's like, oh, you bought an EV, and by the way, that has increased your kilowatt hour consumption 50%. And in addition, understanding solar energy, why you're gonna, get more solar energy during the longer days in the summer, and why that's going to be a smaller piece during other times of the year. Another way to paint that picture for the customer. And we have some basic data if the user has a battery around charging and discharging, as well as some very detailed hourly analytics. If the customer does want to nerd out around some of this great data in terms of understanding that state of charge throughout the day, this can be a helpful graph when discussing battery configuration savings with the customer in terms of, how do you want to think about balancing a reserve state of charge, a minimum SOC, versus trying to take advantage of some of the NEM3 rules or any other use cases where exporting energy to the grid may not be quite as lucrative as storing it in the battery. So those are some of the high-level charts and graphs. As I mentioned, we have referral tools down here. We have a separate referral tab here. We try to make this as easy as possible for a customer to refer their friends. This is, of course, all customizable here. In our demo account, we're saying we'll give the customer a $250 gift card for referring their friends. But we would, of course, modify this based on the business. We, of course, have our label up here right now, but this whole platform is what we refer to as white labelable. So this would have your logo up here. And the nice thing about these sites as well is it's very easy for us to customize these, but depending on what individual solar installers are looking to do or not. We feel like savings is a great metric, and we've heard that from customers as well. But we do have some installer partners who want to focus simply more on the generation aspect. And they say, hey, can we just suppress the savings and that's very easy for us to do. So we can hide and show certain charts depending on what you're looking for here. In addition, we have a little bit more information, which is helpful for the installer, but especially the customer. Obviously, these solar systems have shelf lives of at least 25 years. So 10 or 15 years might go by with no problems. And then the customer may have an issue and may not really remember a lot of the details. So we try to make this a one-stop shop where they can figure out who their installer was. They can pull up what sort of utility rate plan they were on. They can reference their hardware types for installers or even for the customer. We make it easy to jump into that OEM portal if there's some in-depth troubleshooting that needs to be done. That requires a little bit more information than the charts and graphs we have. We have a little bit of an installer contacts here. We have a document repository here, so this is a great place to reference any of those original documents. And then we have all of the warranty information for the hardware, should they need to reference that here. The last thing I'll show is an example of a solar-only site, which is actually our CEO's home. He has solar, but not a battery at the moment. So we do get all of the solar generation, but by default, we wouldn't get any consumption information because he does not have a consumption meter or a battery. And we realized that we could come up with that doesn't stop us from standing up consumer app sites, these sites, and being able to show some savings. But without that consumption, we base the savings largely on the consumption estimates versus the actual consumption. The good news is there's a solution for customers who don't have that hardware that would tell us about their consumption. And that's a new set of APIs that utilities are starting to offer, where the utility will actually share that consumption data with us through an open API. So we've integrated with PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric in California, and we're actually able to pull in very detailed consumption information every month directly from them through an API. So even though there's no hardware, there's no physical consumption meter or battery, we're able to get great consumption information for every month as if that customer did have a battery or consumption meter. And that means we not only can show that to them and call out some of those same trends we looked at before, but it means we can calculate more accurate savings values than we would if we were just using those original estimates. So that's a pretty cool new feature that PG&E is offering, and we know a variety of other utilities are offering as well as the world moves to a more API-friendly way of sharing data. There's some other cool bits to this service as well, such as being able to pull in utility bills for each customer. And of course, this comes from the actual utility. So we really think about them as the source of truth for savings and generation and consumption data. And then we even get some other rich data like consumption, even by time of use, if they're on a tiered plan, and we can help the customer understand their net consumption every month. Are they consuming that on peak or off peak? And if they're doing a lot of on peak, is there room to coach them around energy use, charging their EV, that sort of thing? We find it's very easy to reference these graphs and explain that to them as well. All right. I think I covered most of the highlights here. Get back to our slides. I think we are ready for some Q&A, Eliza. I will hand that over to you and see what folks have been throwing in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Danny, for going over our software. We definitely got some great questions in the chat. I know Danny was jumping in and answering some questions, and feel free to use the Q&A box to continue asking questions. And I have a couple here that I thought that I would read aloud. The first one, I think, is a great question for Mark to answer, which would just be, why do you think that solar installers should use asset management in the fleet view?
Why solar installers should use asset management in the fleet view? Yeah. So this goes into, I think, the importance of asset management, which we talk to installers all the time. We know this has been the biggest pain point in the business. Obviously, selling and installs are not easy, but it seems like that's a little bit more figured out versus dealing with making sure customers are happy and making sure systems are working after you install. And obviously, that becomes a compounding problem as business grows and more inverter brands are added to the mix, and you have to juggle more of those OEM portals. So again, I think this gets back to that point I was making about the strengths and weaknesses of the OEM portals, where I think they're very good at what they were designed for, which is diving deep into specific if there's problems, being able to troubleshoot some of those problems, understand those error codes, look at, per panel level generation if there might be a problem. But we found that it's a little bit less helpful for managing large fleets across multiple inverter types to that fleet view. In addition, we know batteries are coming into the mix now, especially in the California market with NEM 3. But as battery costs come down and these extreme weather events get more frequent, we know a lot more customers are interested in them than they were before. So now we not only have an inverter, but we're adding batteries to the mix and we're adding more admin interfaces and portals. And again, it's these things just compound and it's tough to keep track of all of these things. So we are really focused on this fleet view, which is not trying to solve that in-depth troubleshooting and data analysis someone may need to do with a particular system. But it's really to streamline that process where every morning you wake up, you open your laptop, and you can get a really good sort of quick overview of all the different systems and their current statuses.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. I have a question for Danny here. Just customers wondering if there is a risk-free trial of the software, if they sign up and choose not to move forward, what are the options there?
Yeah, so for trial options, you can definitely get you guys into a live login of the platform for 7 days. Support you guys along the way with, making it configurable to the deals that you're selling. And then from there, you have the decision to make in terms of you want to move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. Sorry, I was just going through some of our questions that are coming in. These look great. Somebody is interested to know if we're integrated with Enerflow. Anybody have an answer for that?
Enerflow, yes, we're in working conversations with them. There is potential for that. So
Beautiful. Thank you. Let's see here. The Enact Home app seems like something that may be helpful for my customers. How customizable is it?
Yeah, so I went into a little of that before, but I can definitely expand on that. As I mentioned, we want to make it brandable. It is brandable for your logo. We can show and hide different elements depending on what you're trying to see or not. We can integrate it with your CRM or any knowledge bases you have. And I'll just say I'm a product manager on the team, so I lead the product development for this. And we've worked a lot individually, very closely with installers. So my team loves talking to installers and hearing why this solution may not be perfect. We want to know, we're trying to obviously sell this to people and make sure it works for the most amount of people. But we're also a relatively small company and we form great relationships with our clients, and we've been able to take the product in certain directions based on individual needs and some of the nuances around installers. So I'd say if there's anything that piques your interest, but you're like, hey, my business has this, what I think might be sort of a unique use case, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to set up some time and learn a little bit more about the business and understand if I can tell you that the software is or is not going in that direction, even if it's not something we support today. Yeah, so definitely feel free to reach out if you're like, hey, it looks like kind of cool, but I feel like there's this one big thing missing for my business. That's what my team is trying to learn as we better understand a lot of the pain points that you guys face in the O&M space.
Awesome. Can you guys give us some examples of other software platforms that are integrated with?
that we are integrated with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're integrating today with Blue Banyan. Uh, we had a list of the ones that we had there. But yeah, like Oracle NetSuite, Soho, Salesforce, accounting system like QuickBooks, really anything that you guys may use. I know Go High Level has become a pretty popular CRM in the solar space, so um, anything from Scoop Solar, Go High Level. I mean, we've heard them all, and so we really try to work with you on what systems you have to make your data and processes more efficient.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. Let's see here. A couple more questions. What do you think the value, Mark, this question will be for you. What do you think the value, or Danny either, the Enact software versus managing my fleet in or giving my customers access to something like Solar Edge or Enphase?
Yeah, I can take a first stab and then Danny can weigh in as well. I think it's again, we we're a software company and we spend a lot of time talking to installers and their customers. And part of our mission is trying to demystify a lot of these numbers, a lot of these kilowatts and kilowatt hours and offset and ROI, a lot of these complex terms that installers fully understand, but their customers don't. And when their customers don't understand something, that means they're getting inundated with questions. They're not happy. They're not referring their customers. Worst case scenario. So we try to make that as simple as possible. Try to answer as many questions as we can through the software without having them need to contact customer service and try to make them just give them the confidence that their system is performing as well as it should be. And if it's not, give them the tools that they need to, hopefully answer some of those questions or resolve things themselves. Or if not, connect them to an installer. But we found that a lot of the OEM portals, some OEMs do a better job at this than others. But we found these OEM portals are really more geared toward installers and in-depth troubleshooting and analysis. These inverter companies, they're hardware companies, right? That's their main business. They want to sell inverters. But the whole reason they offer their APIs is so that they realize they're not going to create the best software for everyone. So they offer these APIs so that they can expose all of this data so that companies who purely focus on software, like us, can take that and create really good user experiences in explaining that data to customers in a more user navigable and a more user-friendly sort of way. So I think it comes down to us being a software company and really designing for both installers and consumers versus a lot of these OEM portals, which are more technical troubleshooting tools and more of just a simple companion piece of software, but they're really focused on the hardware, the actual inverters.
Awesome. Thanks. I know we just hit that 45-minute mark. Looks like we've hit we've answered most of the questions. I just wanted to thank everybody for giving us some time out of your day today to showcase our software and our new Fleet View. We are going to be sending out the recording. It'll be on our company YouTube page, but I will be sure to send everyone who registered a link to view that as well. In addition to links to book one-on-one time with both Danny and Mark if you have any additional questions that we did not get to today. Again, thank you for joining us and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
guys. Bye, everyone.